Huge breaking news in the Zealandism sphere of influence. I was wrong. Well, I mean, I never actually totally staked my claim in the sand, but it would appear that what I thought was true was wrong, or at least partially wrong, or didn't clear the legal threshold, or I don't know, you get to be the judge. The bottom line, the end of the day, is that Lucas Paquetá, this guy right here, if you don't know who that is, he's spent basically 2 years under the cloud, the dark cloud of being investigated for essentially rigging bookings, not rigging entire matches, but rigging bookings in order to win on the betting market in 4 separate instances. He's been cleared in that investigation. He has not been cleared on everything, and we're going to get to that, but I want to get you the quote immediately. However, the Regulatory Commission found this from The Athletic. The Regulatory Commission found the serious charges of the spot fixing to be not proven following a hearing. It said in a statement released by the English FA on Thursday. Now, I ain't gonna lie. It was found to be not proven is not the most convincing way you could have possibly worded it. Right? These people didn't come flying out of the woodwork like, this was a false accusation. It is a clear fabrication, and we will pursue, like they didn't, this wasn't a suplex it wasn't an indictment of the entire system that produced this really brutal time for Paquetá. Now, I know at the time that when these 4 matches came to light, and BBC actually did a nice job, they listed out the 4 separate instances over the course of 2023, November, March, May, and August. And when you went back and watched the highlights, it looked bad. Like if you were trying to make a compelling argument that somebody was trying to get booked in order to make somebody money, it looked like it, right? It looked like it a lot. And this is also, to add an extra log to the fire, an issue that has particularly been big and reported on recently in Brazil over the last couple of years. A number of players in the Brazilian league have been taken down for working with various gangs, right, in Brazil, various criminal entities. You could, if they were in New York in the 1920s, you'd call them the mafia, right? Like just people doing illegal shit that were involved in rigging matches or rigging, goals and bookings for money. It wasn't a far stretch, particularly when all that came out, that Lucas Paquetá, for one reason or another, through his family, who knows, right, had been reeled into doing the same thing, but in Premier League matches. And it would hold the reason that if you didn't want to get caught, you'd want to do one every once in a blue moon instead of trying to pull something off every weekend, hence the gap. And that's why I made a video at the time where I thought that Lucas Paquetá was guilty. And even though I don't think this verbiage of to be not proven is particularly convincing, Paquetá is not getting in trouble for spot fixing. However, he is getting in trouble for something, which I always thought kind of it feels mean. He was charged with 2 counts of failing to cooperate with the investigation after the breach. One in respect to alleged failures to comply pursuant to this rule, which relates to providing information and documents. He also denied these charges, but the Regulatory Commission found them to be proven, right? So the other ones, they found them to not be proven. These they found to be proven, and will decide an appropriate sanction for these breaches at the earliest opportunity. Obviously, maybe the only verdict that they can come back with, this Regulatory Commission, which is independent from the Premier League, by the way, independent from the FA. Now, how truly independent can it be? I have no idea. I've never been involved in an independent regulatory fucking commission before, right? But this allegedly entirely independent regulatory commission has, maybe the only way they can word it is it's not proven or it is proven. So I should stop nitpicking the wording too much. But Lucas Paquetá is in trouble for not cooperating with the investigation on 2 different instances, failing to provide information or documents. Now, obviously, if you want to just grab your tinfoil hat and pop it on, that's a small price to pay if that means that you get off on the actual serious charges. Because I remind you, if he was caught with this spot fixing, this would have been a lifetime ban. He would have never been able to play football in England again. He would have had to leave West Ham. He probably would have had to go back to Brazil, and he would have had this hanging. I mean, he's still, honestly, if we are being honest, he still will have this hanging over his head for the rest of his life, at least the rest of the time that he's in football, right? Because the unfortunate truth is, the news of him getting in trouble for match fixing was much bigger news than him now getting acquitted from it, or found to be not. It was not found to be proven that he was involved in this spot fixing, and so it will haunt him. But it could have potentially ruined his life. So if you're telling me, like tinfoil hat on here, if you're telling me all I have to do is fail or delay the providing of certain information or documents, and then I get some sort of minor charge, but delaying the submission of those documents and that information is going to end up saving me in the long run, then I'd do it. I don't know if that's necessarily what's happening here, right? But that's definitely, you take the minor penalty at the expense of the major one. Now to Paquetà's position, right, which is he's maintained his innocence obviously the entire time. His wife described, let me see. It's described his life as living in a nightmare for 2 years, which there is also a version of this, as much as I've kind of nitpicked everything up to this point, where Paquetá is genuinely innocent, right? Whether this was fabricated, I mean, not even partially guilty, like fully innocent, right? Obviously, they weren't able to prove anything. Maybe the delay in submission of information and documents was just a clerical error. He didn't understand what was going on. It was the advice of his lawyer, maybe, because they were worried that there might be something that could be perceived as incriminating, even though he didn't do it. There's all sorts of different options in there. But playing football for 2 years, knowing that almost at any moment a hammer could drop that means your entire life gets upended, has got to be a pretty traumatic experience. And that cloud that I was talking about earlier, you just have to live with the fact that every time you're out to lunch or something, half the people that look at you are going to be wondering if you were actually involved in that match fixing, because that's the news story that they read. Hell, maybe that's even why they recognized you in the first place. It's always relative, too. And we're looking at somebody that in his first season at West Ham won a European trophy, who plays for the Brazilian national team and has been to the World Cup with the most famous national team in the world, right? Life is going pretty good for Lucas Paquetá, at least at a professional level. And then overnight, all of that changed, and everybody was investigating Lucas Paquetá, turning his life inside out, and I can imagine turning it into a living nightmare over the course of 2 years. Now, it's probably died down and just been like a dull roar in the back of his head for a while, but the relief of finding out that you're actually not going to get charged with this must have been crazy intense. Here's what he said. Since the first day of this investigation, I've maintained my innocence against these extremely serious accusations. I can't say anything more at this time, but I would like to express how grateful I am to God and how eager I am to return to playing football with a smile on my face. Of course, he was allowed to play football this entire time, just not with a smile. To my wife, who never let go of my hand, to West Ham United, to the fans who always cheered me on, and to my family, friends, and legal team who have supported me, thank you for everything. As for West Ham, they said that they were pleased with the verdict and have resolutely stood by Paquetá through the process. Of course, what are they supposed to say? I feel like you just kind of take radio silence until the feedback catches up. But there is one thing that is still missing. The Regulatory Commission's detailed report on Lucas Paquetá. So obviously they've released the initial findings, but as we know, the initial findings leave a lot of room for interpretation, a lot of which I've been practicing over the course of this video. Right, but they are going to have to submit their detailed findings to the FA. The FA who brought these charges, who I'm assuming were arguing in favor of these charges in whatever hearings were going on when it came to this case in front of the Regulatory Commission, or whenever letters were being submitted to this Regulatory Commission. And they also had a response. The FA said it is awaiting those written reasons and will not be commenting further at this time. So this might not be over. I don't know. Because honestly, I don't know how any of this works, right? Not only am I not an expert in UK law, I have no idea where this independent regulatory commission has come from. I'm assuming it was put together by the FA in the first place, and there's so many entities, particularly when it comes to English football. The FA, you've got the English Football League that it's running, then you have the Premier League that's kind of agreeing to work together with everybody. And then you have different, European agencies that get involved in this sort of stuff as well. And it's always it's kind of difficult to parse who's doing what. But at the end of the day, Lucas Paquetá is not going to be banned for life for match fixing, for booking fixing. He is potentially going to be suspended and or punished for obstructing an investigation. And we still don't know how murky the water was. Was the water crystal clean? Or was Lucas Paquetá just able to escape this on a technicality? I'd imagine we're going to make another video when we find that out.